What if I told you you could dominate monsters with the bow without firing a single arrow? Hacking the bow for fun and profit. Now, we're not talking about cheating or mods or whatever you think the word hack means. We're talking about the old school meaning of the word, where you use something for a purpose for which it wasn't intended and get some amazing results. Think life hacks or this one weird trick. The bow is designed to shoot arrows. Charge levels, shot levels, coding, shot type up, food skills for arrows. It's all about the shots. But bow also has an actual melee attack. Now, people think this is just a courtesy, like so you can blow up bombs or get your friends out of a stun. In fact, bow has 6 different melee attacks. Does it even have that many arrow attacks? So it's the melee attacks that we're talking about today. And there are 3 interesting quirks of this weapon type that allow us to hack these melee attacks into an array of high damage moves that make you practically invulnerable. And at the end of this video, you'll probably be convinced that Capcom did this on purpose. So the first little quirk about this bow is how the close range coding actually works. So this coding works great for shots, but most people don't realize that it boosts your melee attacks even more than power coding does. And of course, it's infinite. It never runs out. Now why would Capcom put something like that in the game? The second interesting thing about the bow is the switch skill, Dodge Bolt. As long as you have stamina, you have an immortality move. Most people are using Dodge Bolt as a defensive tool, but its true power is in the offense. Here's how it works. You get 4 iframes like any typical evade maneuver, but what's not typical is that you do melee damage in the process. But wait, there's more. If you intercept an attack right after that, the Dodge Bolt will negate the monster's attack. So in practice, it acts like it has a lot more iframes than it actually gives you. You can negate tremors, roars, breath attacks, and all standard monster attacks. I'm sure there's something in the game that you can't dodge bolt through, but I haven't found it yet. Now, the third interesting thing about the bow is it has customized sharpness mechanics. The bow melee attacks aren't done with the blade or the bow itself. If you look closely enough, you'll see that when you perform a melee attack, you're hitting the monster with an arrow. That is, by the way, why I call this the arrow build. So if you're not using a blade, how does sharpness work? To put it simply, sharpness is irrelevant. You don't have an equivalent sharpness level like yellow or green or blue. You have your own custom sharpness level such that your attacks never bounce and you never lose sharpness. This means you don't have to sharpen and you can attack anything you want without it interrupting your combo. This also means that Bludgeoner is useless, but there's one melee armor skill that isn't. Would you believe me if I told you that Mind's Eye works on bow melee attacks? So these 3 things, close range coding, dodge bolt, and customized sharpness mechanics all come together to make for a very interesting and very playable weapon build. So let's take a look at this build. First, the bow. We're going to use the Narg bow, Night Flight. The Narg bow has a ridiculously high 40% affinity, one of the highest raw damage, and a level 2 slot. We're going to ramp this up with attack and boost our affinity through armor skills. So let's take a look at those. Weakness exploit. This is going to give us 50% affinity on weak spots, and when we couple that with critical eye 2 and the affinity from the bow, we officially have a 100% crit build. Next is Mind's Eye. I went with this because I wasn't able to get 3 points into peak performance. I'm not sure which one is going to work better overall, but I love it when even my poorly executed attacks do ridiculous damage. Mind's Eye does indeed work with the bow melee attacks, and it does just what the description says it does. It boosts your damage by 30% if you're hitting a hard target. That is the opposite of a weak spot. Next, I jacked up my attack boost as high as it would go. Would I like 7? Yeah. Is 4 great? Also, yeah. Now for Evade Extender, this gives us 2 advantages. First, it helps a lot with closing the distance and positioning, and second, the further you can move on your dodge bolt, the more effective your iframes and counterframes become. I found that Evade Extender 1 often comes up short on countering some attacks, and Evade Extender 3 moves me too far, such that my lunging attack can't cover the same ground if, for example, I want to dodge bolt backward and then follow it up with a lunging attack forward. As for part breaker, I put in as many points as I could here because part breaks mean staggers, which means more time attacking. And with all your nonstop dodge bolting and lunging attacks, you're going to hit a lot of different targets and thus get a lot more staggers. Let's face it, technically you're still a ranged weapon user, and so your defense is cut in half. So you might just cart more often than you're used to, at least at first. That's where Fortify comes in. Now, carts are a good thing. An additional 10% damage each for the first 2 carts. Flinch free is a must for online play, and the other two skills here are just bonuses from the set and my talisman, but Master Mounter is a great skill for this build. It gives you more control over the monsters you ride, and weaponizing intruders is highly effective. As for the switch skills, the only one we care about is the dodge bolt. If you're not averse to using shots, you can incorporate the aerial aim attack quite nicely into this build, and also use the melee attack at the end for a massive hit. You don't even have to charge the bow. If you do a perfect counter on your dodge bolt, you'll max out the charge level instantly, since we're not using the mighty bowfeather here, and we can go straight up into an aerial attack to deliver full damage. What do we target? This is a melee attack, so we target melee weak spots, not the ones you're used to with regular bow gameplay. For the most part, they are the same, that is, attack the head, but there are some notable differences. Check your large monster screen if you need some guidance. The last piece of this build, and definitely not the least, are the buddies. For Palicos, get one with Power Drum and Rousing Roar for more attack buffs. I like Shock Tripper as well. It gives a Thunder Blight for easy KOs. As for your Palamutes, I like to jack them up with Attack Up and Element Attack Up, then give them the appropriate element weapon for the target monster, and then the Parasol and Flurry Strike Scroll. Now, just to be clear, here are some things you don't need. Stamina. You will not run out of stamina. Don't even worry about it. If you're only using the dodge bolt attack, you might, but spamming dodge bolt without using your other melee attacks is not the most efficient way to play this build anyway. Since you don't need stamina, you can use the Demon Petal Ace to max out your attack, or use the one that maxes out your health. You do not need Mighty Bowfeather. This should be a huge relief for you and give you flexibility in your build. You do not need Shot Type Up. Yeah, it's a 20% boost, but only to shots. We aren't using shots, remember? You do not need Power Coats. These are junk as far as this build is concerned. Maybe for a hybrid build, but they only reduce your damage on melee attacks when compared to close range coatings. You do not need Reload Speed 2. Just apply your close range coatings and forget about it. What about other coatings though? Well, it's going to take dozens of hits just to get one status effect, so it's really not a practical option for a pure arrow build. Okay, one last thing before you pick your quest. Food skills. I eat for booster and weakener, and the third one is just whatever else I need. Currently, I'm eating for trainer until my buddies are maxed out. That's the arrow build. I've used this against several monsters and it's amazing. You guys really loved that last melee bow video I did. This is a definite improvement over that build. A lot of you have built your own melee sets and have really taken this thing to the next level, and that's awesome. It's a whole lot of fun to play this style. So, all that said, here's my challenge to you. Number one, can you make a better melee bow set than this? And number two, can you get a sub 5-minute quest using the arrow build? Make it interesting, make it a challenging monster. I'm pretty sure we can all get sub 5 on the iixxion. Link to a video of your melee bow run in the comments, and also tell me what you do differently with this build. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I want to keep growing, I want to keep posting videos, and you guys are the ones that make it happen.